Hello and welcome back to another episode of Diablo to D&D. My name is David, and today we're going to be going over the massive changes that I have made to the Druid. So, I have been focusing on the Druid for the past couple of weeks because I really didn't feel like it was exactly where I wanted it to be. There was a handful of things that I changed that were fairly significant. If you'd watched the changelog video last week, there were some really big changes. They got extra attack, and the shifter druid changed because of that extra attack. Here I am going to tell you that those changes have been almost entirely reverted. So basically, I looked at the blank levels. And I thought, well, here's a bunch of levels that I don't have filled, but those are matching up well with, a full caster. And I always thought that the Druid would be a half caster. I don't know, it always felt more martial to me. But as I worked on this more and more, I found that it would be better to bring it in as a full caster. And this is kind of me also trying to make it more in line with the 2014 or the original D&D Druid. It's not exactly perfect because where form has limited number of shapes, so wild shape doesn't exactly fit, so those wild shape improvements won't exactly fit well, but there's a lot that I can do. So I did. So let's go over the changes. I'll be covering them in not as much detail, but the exact specifics in the next video, the next week's changelog. But you'll get the more complex breakdown here. So the first thing that I had to do was look at the shifter druid, because the shifter druid has quite a few abilities. I believe it has a total of 7, technically, because you have Lycanthropy at level 2, and then you had Feral Rage, Rabies, and Fury, and then Maul, Fire Claws, and Shockwave. And the idea is that you're focusing on your were form, and your were form gets better. And I figured that was probably too much, and the actual Diablo Druid only focuses on one of those forms. So what I did is I split them into 2. You have the Shifter Lupine and Shifter Ursine. They're technically 2 subclasses now. They're completely separate now. And that actually enabled me to bump up their abilities to be a little bit stronger. Feral Rage now gives you an additional attack when you take the attack action on your turn while in werewolf form, and basically undoing what I did in the previous change. And then Maul gives you additional damage for consecutive strikes across your turns. So you want that big single hit that you get that 1d12 plus your strength or wisdom modifier. They still keep the unlimited number of uses of their bonus action. The Feral Rage gives you the bonus action offhand attack that heals you, and Maul gives you that bonus action shove. You keep those an unlimited number of times because you no longer have the option of switching between your forms and picking the best one in the situation that you're in. And then, of course, Fire Claws now deals fire damage equal to your wisdom modifier instead of half, because the bear no longer gets additional attacks. The idea behind all of this is it's a better fit for the adaptation. That's just the long and short of it, is that now you get to focus on a single build rather than... You're trading power for options. You're trading options for power, and that I just think is a better fit. They both share Lycanthropy at level 2, but I'm looking for some ability that will separate them so that they feel different, because right now they're literally the same up to level 6. One of my players suggested advantage on tracking or getting a climb speed or something to focus in on that bear and wolf feel. And honestly, I think getting a bit of utility for your were form would be perfect. I'm not a big fan of splitting Lycanthropy into, your bear form gets more hit points, but your wolf form does not, or the other way around, because it just doesn't actually work, because that's what Lycanthropy does, is increase both. But that might be a design thing for an ARPG. I don't know. I'll consider it, but as it is right now, they're sharing Lycanthropy. As I mentioned before, since these changes have been reverted, extra attack has been removed. This feels good to me, because the Druid getting extra attack just kind of felt weird. But that opens up the 5th level to be a blank level. And that's a good thing, because now the Druid is a full caster. So now you get that level 1 through level 9 spells. The cantrips are remaining the same. Those haven't changed. But now the Druid is a prepared spellcaster rather than a spells known spellcaster. And that makes it entirely like the D&D Druid. The Carrion Vine and the Solar Vine were on levels that were blank for a full caster, levels 7 and 15. So what I did was I took the Poison Vine from level 1 and bumped it up to 4th level. This way, it takes the place of that Wild Shape improvement. And so pushing the Vine up to 4th level reduces complexity at the 1st level. It gives you some time to adjust to how the class actually plays, and it gives you some additional power that the D&D Druid had at level 4 that this one did not have. Now, Carrion Vine and Solar Vine have been moved from, like I said, 7th and 15th levels down to 8th level. This fits in with the 2nd Wild Shape improvement from the D&D Druid. This is making your Vine better. But because it is dropping the Solar Vine down 7 levels, it has been nerfed to a single use of a class ability rather than 1d3 uses. They're both still once per short rest, but now you get them both at 8th level. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about them being two separate abilities, and they are definitely, just for like wording purposes, but there's definitely some tweaks that can be made. The Solar Vine probably should be tweaked a little bit. I was talking to my players on Thursday when we met about this. Solar Vine currently restores class features, and there's no limit to it. It could be once per long rest. It could be abilities that recharge on a long rest, on a short rest, on a turn, or whatever. It just says a single use of a class ability. What I could do is a couple of different things. I could switch it to picking something that recharges on a short rest. So it's more in line with the catnap spell, for example, where you get a 10-minute short rest, quote-unquote short rest. Or it could be that it gives you a long rest ability back. It could be that I switch it to spell slots, because the Solar Vine restores mana, Solar Creeper is what it's called in Diablo, and that restores mana, and mana is now, quote-unquote, back in the form of spell slots. So maybe not. One big interaction that I found is Arcane Recovery for the wizard. It's a single ability, but that's pretty darn powerful, being able to restore quite a few spell slots there. So I might move it to something like you roll 1d3 and you get that many number of points and restore that many spell slots once per short rest or something like that. I don't know. But that's what I'm sitting on for that. And I think the last thing to talk about is Hunger. Hunger was the 11th level ability. This was kind of your mid-level upgrade to the Were form. And honestly, it could probably have been your 8th level ability. Actually, now that I think about that, that could be interesting. I'll have to think about that. Moving Carrion and Vine and Solar Vine down to 4th level, just as a base part of the Poison Vine, and then making Hunger a part of the 8th level class feature so that it frees up the 18th level class feature. I'll think about it. Anyway, as it sat in the 11th level slot, it restricted it to quite a few, restrictions. You had to be under half your hit points, and you regained hit points based on your based on your proficiency bonus, which is, like I mentioned when I was talking about it in one of my previous videos, which very much sits in the same slot as the Form of the Beast for the Beast Barbarian. However, bumping it up to 18th level, I have tweaked it to be more akin to, not exactly, but kind of, sort of, like the Champion Fighters something recovery. I can't remember. You regenerate hit points every round. So something that's a little bit stronger, but still keeping that restriction of being under half your hit points. Hunger now gives you hit points based on half the damage that you dealt. So you become much, much more tanky. This way, it's an 18th level feature. So I think that is pretty much it. I'm gonna have to go back and take a look at whether or not Hunger could be a part of that. What is it? What did I say it was? The wild shape improvement thing. A possibility that I have is making the Vine its own subclass. I don't know what I would call it or what it would do. You'd get the Vine at level 2, and then you'd get Carrion Vine at level 6, and Solar Creeper at level 10, or maybe 14th level. I don't know. It'd be very much like the Spiritualist, where you just have a blank level somewhere until I fill it with something. But it would be the focus of that subclass. I don't know how I feel about that. The Vine is kind of that iconic early level, I need to get damage. And it's just passive damage for the... in Diablo, you summon it, and it just does its own thing. And so I kind of want it to be its own class feature, but I also kind of want it to be its own subclass. There is the Rabies Druid that does put points into... in the video game, there is a Rabies Druid where you put 20 points into Rabies, 20 points into the Vine, because they're synergies, and you just go full poison. So I guess I could conceivably do that, but I think for now I'll leave things where they are, because otherwise I'd have to come up with, new abilities, and I'm kind of running out of ideas, honestly. Anyway, I think I'm going to end it there. You can find me at XenozFan2, that is XenozFan2, on Twitter and Blue Sky and Reddit. And you can contact the channel directly at Diablo, TODND, on Twitter and Blue Sky and YouTube. Thank you much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good whatever.